Okay, so yeah, I messaged you because you recently had a discussion with Destiny, which I actually found really interesting. It's really nice to actually get your perspective on foreign policy, because there's not a lot of conservatives on Twitch who really like go in detail to the foreign policy beliefs. And you had about a 20-minute discussion, I believe, about the Iran deal, but and the Soleimani killing. But the Soleimani killing discussion was what really interested me, because you like sung its praises, and you said, I believe you even like specifically said that it was like one of the best moves ever, and like went in detail about that. But I didn't hear a lot of explanation about why you thought it was the best deal ever. So I thought it would be a really cool like to have a discussion, sit down, and talk about that. So could you explain to me why you think it's a really good move?
Yeah, I can. To be clear, you don't agree with the killing of Soleimani.
I don't agree with the strike. I don't think it was a good idea.
Okay, here's basically why it was the right call. First of all, Soleimani was one of the world's worst terrorist killers. He was engaged in a decades-long war against the United States. Was going to clearly conduct more military attacks. He was responsible for over 600 American soldiers' deaths. He was a designated terrorist, just like the guy that he was with. Soleimani's death was a huge loss for Iranian regime and their proxies. It's a major operational psychological victory for the United States to be able to take out a high-level target like that. It bolsters the United States' deterrence against Iranian aggression. It was an incredibly successful strike that went off without a hitch. It'll totally alter Iranians' cost-benefit calculus, lead them to moderate their hostile and aggressive policies in the Middle East. And the primary reason that people were against it didn't come out to be true. People were saying that this was going to escalate and lead to full-scale war, just like the dire predictions about moving the embassy to Jerusalem would lead to all these terrible things. None of those downsides came true. This guy was a terrible, horrible terrorist killer, one of the worst people on earth. And frankly, I'm just stunned that anybody would be opposed to it. I mean, were you opposed to killing Osama bin Laden?
Well, no, but I'm against this for strategic reasons, as I think it helps Iran in the long run.
So do you disagree
Well,
with anything I just said?
yeah, I disagree with everything.
How could you possibly, on what basis?
Well, the only thing I don't disagree with you is like he's a monster. He's a complete fucking psychopath. Not only now, a lot of people base this solely on his opposition to America, but a lot of people forget like his opposition to student protests in the country, him being in favor of suppressing that. And not to mention like his subordinate and the like training militias who eventually ended up I think executing children in Syria and recruiting of child soldiers. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a complete monster. But I think by the way we conducted this in the long run, to me, I think ended up helping Iran strategically and hurt our strategic interests in the region. And I'll just go through a few instances. The first thing, it would be killing Soleimani. The main reason I would want to kill someone like Soleimani is that he has a lot of expertise, and he's a very like he's smart at what he does. He was able to develop Iranian asymmetrical warfare onto a very high level. I mean, all the way from when he first got in the Quds Force. I think it was in 1997, and that's also when I think his Isim Khani under him was also appointed. And when that happened, he basically was able to arrange these asymmetrical warfare when it came to Hezbollah and southern Lebanon, Iraqi militias funding opposition. He was a very smart guy. The problem is killing him. You also need to think, okay, what happens to the Quds Force going forward, right? And what happens to the Quds Force going forward is I don't think we've done any damage to the Quds Force long term whatsoever. And the reason why, number one, this was used in Iran as an opportunity for propaganda, of course. You know, Soleimani was very well known in Iran. He's a cult figure. And they kind of used him to, like, prop up the image of America, like, stepping over boundaries, killing our heroes, blah, blah, blah. And it removed pressure from protesters in the country, you know, like the idea that during the time, you know, there's protests in the country and they were going against Iran very hard because the economic conditions within Iran are very, like, difficult. It's also a very young country, and young people don't really like theocracies that much. And they were able to get out from under the pressure of that political pressure that the protesters were putting on top of them, and able to pass legislation to increase funding to the Quds Force, use Soleimani as a martyr, and replace him with a little-known man called Ismail Khani, who has been working alongside Soleimani since 1997, and he's had experience since 1980 when he fought in the Iran-Iraq War, much like Soleimani. And he's a very experienced individual. He's worked in Asia, Pakistan. He's organized the defense of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, specifically with the groups Liwa Zambion and Lima's Faitimion. The only difference between one's like mostly Pakistani and was an offshoot of the other. That's about, I think, like 10 to 20,000 fighters plus an extra 1,000 for the second militia. He's been active across the region. Not to mention, he not only in the Iraq-Iran war was he in it, he also like led forces. This is someone who's also worked under him for over 2 decades. This is somebody who's extremely, extremely competent. And so if I'm going to take this strategic risk to kill Soleimani for the fallout that we have had in Iraq, I don't see the strategic benefit. And so if I'm going to kill someone, I want strategic benefit for that killing, and I don't see that. And so let me talk about the negatives of the fallout of what happened. The first thing we could talk about is the undermining of protesters all across, not only in Iraq but in Iran, like I hit on for a little bit. In Iran, during the time, there was protests. A lot of it came from originally like the cutting of fuel subsidies, but that wasn't the root of the problem. The root of the problem is their fucking theocracy, evil, like bad. They're bad guys, and they've never really attended to the economic woes in the country. So due to the sanctions, a lot of other problems, they're not able to provide the jobs and the social benefits that the people want. And because of that, there were a lot of protests. By us killing Soleimani, what they were able to do after killing protesters and everything and being under tremendous pressure is take attention from those protests, say, you need to unite with us right now. They just killed one of our biggest icons, one of our biggest heroes who fought in the sacred war against Iraq when they tried to conquer us, where they used gas against us. And they just killed him in cold blood. And you need to stop protesting right now. We need to unite. And all these people turned out and protested. Now that's not to say all Iranians love Soleimani. But it is undeniable to say that Soleimani is not a cult icon when it comes to the image that has been produced. And even more so now, we've provided so much propaganda, and that's on top of the fact that the protests going on within Iraq were very, like, majority, like, anti-Iranian. They were protests against Iranian, like, influence, since Iranian militias, like the PMF, Khatib Hezbollah, all these terrible groups, were killing people in the streets. At the time, we believe it was over 500 people dead. I haven't checked in a while, but it, like, tremendous many people being killed, and we undercut them and made it so they now have to concentrate on 2 peoples, because the Iraqi government, it was a horrible PR disaster for the Iraqi government. What happened was they saw us as violating their sovereignty, but not only like violating their airspace and doing this airstrike, but we also killed in the strike, which you said there was like no hitches or like there was nothing wrong with the strike whatsoever. We killed members of the Iraqi military in the strike, which they saw as a huge front to Iraq by killing members of the Iraqi military, which led to them eventually voting to expel U.S. troops. Now, that was non-binding, right? And we eventually followed it up by saying, we're not going to leave. But what that says to the Iraqi people is that the America just came in and bombed and killed Soleimani, killed members of the Iraqi military, completely disregarded our call to leave their country, and basically like flipped us off. And then it's really hard making to an argument of somebody who's flirting with maybe joining a Iranian-backed militia. It's very hard making the argument to that person that that doesn't look like an occupation. And I feel like we're pushing Iraq into the strategic arms of Iran. I mean, there's a few other points I could get on to, specifically how it relates to Syria and everything. But I've already said a lot, so I want to flow it back to you and get your thoughts on what I just said.
Yeah, that is just the least compelling argument I've ever heard, that you're talking about incredibly attenuated what ifs, and maybe this has happened based on a bunch of weird facts and basically giving in to basically Iranian government propaganda. I mean, there were really actually protests celebrating the death of Soleimani. The Iranian people do not support this regime. The Iranian people, I totally support the protesters in Iran, and I would love to see the Iranian people overthrow the government. And okay, maybe the Iranian government was able to have a little bit of a rally around the flag effect because we took this guy out. That's a minor issue that in no way offsets the huge benefits of stopping this guy's reign of terror. And No, he isn't just easily replaceable. You think you said something about, oh, he's just easily replaceable, or some other guy's this great, wonderful guy too with all of these things, and he can just.
Well, none of them are great and wonderful. They're all monsters.
Well, the point is you said somebody was really good at
Ismail Khani. Yeah, Ismail Khani.
It's like no, like this guy Soleimani was sort of unique. This was a huge blow to the Iranian regime.
What do you think of his replacement?
None of your like reasons for why you were opposed to the strike came true. Like
they all came true. Literally everything I just said. Okay. Everything I just said was just things that have occurred.
Like, okay, here, but basically what your argument is, I don't believe in killing terrorists because, oh my gosh, it might create more terrorists if we kill a terrorist. It's like, you know what? If somebody's going to become a terrorist because the United States killed a terrorist, then that person is probably already on their way to becoming a terrorist anyway. You're like capitulating the terrorists, basically.
Okay, so if I'm anybody and I hear on the news that members of my military were killed by a foreign force in my country without my permission, that's going to radicalize me in a certain direction, no matter where I stand on the political spectrum. And back to the point of Ismail Khani, I'm sure you don't, disregarding, his expertise completely. You must not know who this guy is. Basically, everybody in the field, knows, Ismail Khani has experience, a lot of experience in the field, and is well a monster, but basically everybody said that when it came to, Ismail replacing him, basically it means that when it comes to the effects on the Quds force long term, it's pretty neutral. But also on top of the fact, because of the public, by the way, the idea that Soleimani is hated by the wide majority of Iranians, there are Iranians who don't like Soleimani, but from everything I've ever read, the consensus is in Iran, the majority of Iranians see Soleimani as a martyr right now, and that's what they view him as, and we have helped them build that image. And it's not that I'm against.
Who cares? You know what? If we would have killed Hitler, the Nazis would have considered Hitler a martyr. Al-Qaeda members considered Osama bin Laden a martyr. That's not a reason to not kill terrorist murderers who have killed American soldiers and are on their way to killing more American soldiers. And plus, this whole idea that it's had no impact because some other random guy. It's like, everything I've read is that Soleimani was unique. He was the one that masterminded all this stuff, and it's complete bullshit to say that this was not successful and it had no impact on the Quds Force or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Well, then what impact?
This strike was incredibly successful because the Iranians backed down immediately. Well,
no, they haven't.
They did their sort of fake
continued
attack where they made sure to not kill
Americans. American soldiers are dead right now. They've been killed.
This was incredibly successful at defusing the entire situation, and you can't sit here and point out, the Middle East is a mess, and the Middle East has this problem, and the Middle East has that problem, and somehow blame that on the killing of Soleimani. It's like, of course the Middle East is a complete disaster. It's not because we took out a designated terrorist who was responsible for killing Americans, and it was on his way to killing Americans, and you can't sit here and say that this has not changed the Iranian government. And plus, this dude was on Iraqi soil. A lot of Iraqis were happy that the United States did this because they're sick of Iran interfering in Iraqis' internal affairs. And
of course, I just commented on that.
Tell me, if you're an Iranian military guy, do you think you're going to feel real comfortable, traipsing around the Middle East, planning attacks on Americans? No,
but this happened though. Well, let's slow down quick. But the thing is, you're saying now they're going to back off, they're going to stop. I think it was 3 weeks ago, 2 American soldiers were killed by an Iranian-backed militias, including a British soldier and members of the Iraqi military, in a strike by Katib Hezbollah, which is an Iranian-backed militia, which was also part of the people, part of the organization, the PMF, which part of the people we killed. So they're killing Americans right now. And
the Trump administration has launched strikes on Kateb Hezbollah, and I'm all in favor of more strikes. So now are you suggesting that we should do more military strikes on Kateb Hezbollah?
No, you're just taking words out of my mouth. Back up. You said, number one, you said that they're not killing Americans. I just showed they are killing Americans, right? I didn't want to do this escalation, tit for tat, going back and forth. When it came to the original escalation, by the way, these are just
There's not an escalation going on.
Americans are dead. How could you say that's not an escalation? Americans are dead.
Americans have exactly, which is why we killed this guy. And you're sitting here saying that we shouldn't have killed somebody who's killed Americans and was killing more Americans.
Well, it looks like Ismail is ready to kill Americans as well.
I know that there are Americans dying in the Middle East, which is why we need to fucking strike these motherfuckers and kill them. And I don't take kindly to people saying, no, you shouldn't kill terrorists. We are in a fucking war against terrorists. I know that there's American soldiers dying. That's why we need to be killing these motherfuckers.
The thing is, it's not as simple as just blow up the terrorists. It isn't that simple. When it comes to these like interlocking conflicts, we need to like say, okay, if we do this strike, what will be the reaction? What will be the fallout, right? If it was that simple, if it was as simple as like just kill the bad guy, then we should just go to assassinate Kim Jong-un. Like, fuck it, right?
But there hasn't been much fallout.
There has been fallout, though.
You guys always predict all of this terrible fallout. Oh my gosh, if the U.S.
By the way,
its embassy to Jerusalem, tons of fallout.
Don't say my position for me. By the way, I'm not alleging anything. You're saying you guys. Who's you guys?
So did you not predict a bunch of fallout before the United States moved its embassy to Jerusalem? And if so, wow, actually, you're the only guy on the left that didn't do it.
Okay, number one,
I love that. Just like you probably the only guy that didn't actually think that Trump colluded with Russia too.
You're really like alleging a lot of things about me, but not knowing what my position was. I didn't comment on the idea of moving the embassy until it happened, and when I did, I basically said, this is a non-starter, this is bad for tensions, this is not going to help diplomacy. That was my thing. I didn't say there would be a war breaking out. I don't know many people who said this was going to start a war. If the most anybody I think could have said is that this might mean that like some certain groups within like some terror groups might launch a few missiles. Like that's the most I would have been able to like see happen there. I wouldn't say a war was going to start, and I'd love to see any lefty Twitch people said, well, this is going to start a war. I would love you to direct me towards somebody.
Okay, well, I mean, you sat there and talked for like 10 minutes about why we shouldn't have killed a terrorist.
Well,
and
said
basically,
12 points.
I can't even boil down your argument to anything that I could even like put into words because it made no sense. It was so twisted and attenuated and relied on all these ifs, thens, and knock-on effects 10 years down the road. The bottom line,
everything I said has already happened.
Success. Okay, what? Name one.
Americans dying.
Dude, Americans have been dying in the Middle East for decades.
The problem is
that's why we killed this guy.
I feel like I could step in there because you guys both did go for a bit at the beginning, and I think pretty much established what your difference of opinions are. If either of you guys have a specific point or question you would like to present to the other to kick something off, it'd probably be good because you guys covered a lot already.
So his specific point is, well, look, there's still Americans dying in the Middle East. Therefore, we shouldn't have killed the terrorist who was responsible for over 600 deaths previously. That's a preposterous position.
Now, my point wasn't we shouldn't have killed him because people will continue to die. It's an escalation. It'll make it easier for them to kill troops in the future.
Yeah, and my point is, no, there's going to be less.
Why?
You know why? Why? You know why? Because now the Iranians know that if they continue to do stuff like this, we will take them out and we will kill them.
But they just did it anyway.
Hey, look... what's your point? What's
because
your point?
your thing was the killing of
Soleimani. You basically want to appease the terrorist. Oh my
I didn't
gosh,
want to appease the terrorist, but I don't want to do huge escalations for zero strategic gain.
There wasn't a huge escalation. That's the point. This de-escalated the situation.
Killing a leader of a major leader in Iran, a political figure, a military figure in Iran, Qasem Soleimani, killing him was not an escalation.
No, it de-escalated the situation.
Is that why the IRGC did a direct attack on American soldiers in Iraq? Is that not an escalation?
Dude, that was the most hilarious thing because it was obvious that when they did that, they purposefully made sure that it didn't actually kill American soldiers. Either that or their missiles really, really suck.
Well, it did wound over 100, though.
Yeah, but they knew that if they killed somebody, that they would have been taken out quick. By the way, Trump has been so restrained with Iran. I actually think we should even be more aggressive in terms of going after Iran.
Who should we have killed instead?
More and more terrorists that you like to refer to as political figures when they're actually terrorists.
Well, terrorists can be political figures.
Yeah, but if you want to refer to him as a political figure, you're basically taking the side of the Iranian terrorist regime.
Well, no,
you know what we call him?
I called him a monster. What do you want more? What do you want me to call him? The next Hitler?
I want you to quit saying, well, terrorists can be political figures. Yeah, he's a political figure to terrorists. To Americans, he's a terrorist.
Well, no, you said that me calling him a political figure was downplaying his terrorism, which I called him a monster earlier. I've called him like every bad name in the book, and then I also brought up his crimes, which you haven't been like talking about his impacts on the Iranian population or what he's done to the Iranian population with the student protests or anything else. I think I actually know about the crimes of Soleimani a little bit more than you. I think you're getting a little disrespectful here, Lecture Fan. Let's calm down. Let's bring it down a notch. Come on, man. Let's be polite. Let's be cordial. Come on, my guy.
I haven't done anything that's impolite.
I mean, don't you think like mocking my voice? Don't you think that's a little poking at me? I mean, I get it. Like, you're on the wall, you're on the fences, you're on the ropes, you're swinging wild. I get it. You know, you got to do what you need to do to like fill up the airwaves. But you know, you can like take a bow here. You can.
It's just I get fired up when people are literally defending and arguing that we shouldn't have killed a terrorist who was responsible for over 600 American deaths and was conducting ongoing terror operations, and all because the only thing that, I mean, I'm still trying to even understand your nonsense position. All I can tell is, well, geez, if we killed them, that must have inspired some other terrorists, and maybe some other people are maybe they escalated, and it's like, dude, these are very, very weak and very, very non-compelling arguments when I have extremely strong arguments to justify this strike.
Your strong arguments is that his side has killed Americans and that he has helped kill Americans, and that's your point for why you should kill him. And my point is, let's kill less Americans at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I shed no tears for the man dying. I don't like Soleimani. He's a fucking terrorist. He's a bad guy. But I think that him being killed at the end of the day put Iran in a better strategic position for what it can do within Iraq, dig its claw deeper within the country. Basically, they're giving groups, like there was an article released by Foreign Policy talking about how Iranian-backed proxies in Iraq have now gotten more bold, specifically talking about Kataib Hezbollah and the PMF, right? These militias are getting more bold. They're basically being given the go-ahead by ESMAIL. Right? So if this whole move was to back off Iran, why are they more bold than ever?
Because you know why? Because Trump's sanctions on Iran have put them into a terrible situation where they're literally teetering on the edge of collapse. Barack Obama and the Obama foreign policy was the original administration that pulled out of Iraq in a terrible, terrible way against all military advice and left the power vacuum that Iran was then able to fill. And then not only that, but then did a deal with the Iranians that enriched them and allowed them not only a power vacuum to fulfill in Iraq, but then gave them a bunch of money to justify it. And finally, thank God Trump won and pulled out of that Iran deal and put hardcore sanctions on the Iranian government, is now killing terrorist leaders of the Iranian regime. And they're literally on the edge of collapse. Their economy is about to collapse. They're striking out and freaking out because they need to create all of this instability to try to justify their own existence. That's why they're escalating.
Isn't it a little weird that these escalations completely correlate directly with right after we killed General Qasem Soleimani and with Ismail Khani taking leadership?
Dude, they were doing it before then. Do you even know why they killed him?
They killed an American they killed a contractor, and then he went to missiles in the green zone. I know exactly why we ended up killing him.
They did a lot more than that. They were escalating a lot more than that. They were attacking.
That specific instance,
they attacked ships in the Persian Gulf.
I know. Yes, I know that.
They were doing that because they're on the edge of collapse because of Trump's great work in pulling out of the Iran deal and sanctioning them into the ground.
So why has he helped them then? Why has he helped Iran? He's helped Iran by killing. If your whole thing, you said you support Iranian protests and the Iranian people, right? You support them.
Absolutely.
So you would not. So you would be against any effort.
Obama,
you can pivot to Obama all you want, but I'm not going to divert off of this. So when it comes to this specifically, right? You would be against any efforts to undercut Iranian protesters who are protesting against the government. You would actually be for supporting them, right?
Of course, yes.
Okay, so
because ideally, what we need is for the Iranian people to rise up and overthrow the mullahs and institute a Western-friendly government, which is what most of the people in Iran want, including most of the young people. And they had the opportunity in 2009, and Barack Obama failed to do it. And there's continuing to be ongoing protests, particularly now that their economy is in collapse. And so, look, you can pretend that you want to do a tunnel vision and just focus on Soleimani killing. But dude, you have to have
that's what the discussion's about. I brought it out.
The history of all of our policy in the Middle East and how we got here and what we did to get here, what our overall goals are, how do we get there. I'm sorry, saying that killing one of their top leaders and one of their top terrorists is a benefit to the regime makes no sense.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't give them any strategic like negatives here though. At the end of the day, right? If they're replaced by somebody who the wide majority of like experts I've looked at, and personally what I'm alleging here is that it doesn't degrade their effectiveness to operate. Their funding for the Quds force, even with your sanctions, has increased after the Soleimani strike. Their ability to do operations and their operations have gotten more bold within Iraq after the Soleimani strike, right? The protests within the country were able for after the
but you know what they didn't do? They didn't do sieges on 4 American embassies, which is what they were planning when he was killed.
Well, now they're just launching missiles into it. They're launching missiles into the green zone.
Oh wow, man, they never did that before, did they? Jeez, that's brand new.
Well, no, but you made like this thing that this was gonna back them off. This was gonna like make them stand back, and if anything, they've gotten more bold than ever.
No, dude, that's totally disconnected from reality. They were literally launching attacks on Saudi Arabia's oil machinery. They were capturing oil ships in the Persian Gulf. They were doing sieges on American embassies. And then guess what? We took out Soleimani, and all of that stopped.
And American bodies have hit the floor. It's like I don't see how so your thing is bombing Saudi oil refineries.
Americans were never killed in the Middle East.
That's not what I never said that. I never said that. But your thing is, hey, they got to the back off. They fucking stop it. They're scared of Trump and his big muscles. They're very bigly muscles.
Well,
right?
They are. They have backed off. But you know what they haven't done? They haven't captured any more ships in the Persian Gulf. They haven't attacked Saudi Arabia's oil facilities anymore. They haven't done any more sieges on American embassies. And they haven't tried shooting down any American drones either, because they also tried, or they actually did shoot down an American drone.
Well, wait. Those, and you know all of that is without context, though.
The Iranian leaders are no longer traipsing around the Middle East and meeting face to face with all their little terrorist operators all across the Middle East. Because you know why? Because they're scared. Because they're going to get taken out. And if you don't take these people out, they just operate with impunity.
So
I'm sorry. What the hell is your plan to deal with this situation if you don't support killing terrorists?
It's not that I don't support killing terrorists. I supported the mission in Syria, for example, and supporting the SDF, unlike Trump, of course, because he eventually, backstabbed the Kurds. But when it comes to this specifically, like killing Soleimani, so your argument is like, hey, now they're going to travel more scared, so it's going to be harder to kill leadership in the future? So we wasted this opportunity that could have been used to kill leadership to an actual strategic gain on killing Soleimani? Because now they're going to be...
It was a strategic
so
gain.
What's the strategic gain? Your only thing is like, but this guy's really smart, and that's the only argument. What is a strategic gain? You're talking about like these ideas that they're backing off now, but their like positioning hasn't stopped. They're still supporting the Houthi rebels. They're still supporting the government of Bashar al-Assad. They're still within Iraq, and their bold missions have gotten more bold, and the militias they're backing have gotten more bold. It has killed Americans, killed our allies, killed Iraqi militiamen. They have continued these operations, but your thing is like, yo, but they're not shooting down drones. Well, that drone was a specific scenario where our drone was either near or within their airspace. Like that opportunity doesn't come along like a lot. And I swear to you, if a drone went into Iran right now, I'm pretty confident it'd be shot down. And we can tell from the time that the plane was shot down within Iran that they are very willing to shoot down whatever the fuck's in their airspace, even if it's their own people.
Look, nobody ever said that killing the Iranian terrorist leader was going to turn the Iranians into angels. And wow, now the Iranian government are angels. They don't do anything bad anymore. They don't support terrorists. That's not what nobody ever said that. And to say,
you said they were going to back off, and they're not.
Yeah, the Iranians didn't turn into wonderful little angels and just love Americans after we killed. Therefore, it was an operational failure. The point is that it completely de-escalated the situation. It was a fantastic move. And again, I ask you, if you're just such a naysayer, or are you more than just a naysayer and a critic, or do you actually have a plan, or do you just sit here and criticize from the sidelines?
Now number one, here's one. We can get into the plans after, and I do have a plan when it comes to this. But specifically, there's one last thing I want to talk about, which you've kind of gone over a lot. we haven't only isolated ourselves with this move from like allies we didn't inform in advance, and of course the Iraqi government, because they voted to expel our troops, and we were actually in talks about us pulling back troop deployments in relation to this. So we're actually ceding ground to Iran within Iraq because of this move. We're in negotiations right now with the Iraqi government to do it. That was released back in February, right? I think it was like February 14th. When it comes to Soleimani, I do not think my original plan is very simple. I think that when it comes to their operations, we confront them. When it comes to Hezbollah, we confront them when it comes to their operations in Syria. Actually, here's a great extension of the plan. We don't pull out of Syria. We don't.
Okay, how the hell? What are you talking about? You're saying we should confront them, but then on the other side of your mouth, you're saying don't kill them. So what the hell are you talking about?
Well,
how do you
this happens all the time.
Killing
That's simple. When we were confronting the Soviet Union all across the world, we didn't like just fucking kill out of nowhere top generals, top figures. But then, could you imagine if we just killed like one of their most important like heads? Like if we just killed the head of the NKVD in the middle of the Cold War, how dangerous that would have been.
Well, that's not even comparable in any. That's such a different situation in so many different ways. That's not a good comparison.
Well, no, but you would definitely see why me
First
killing
of all,
like, but you see that my point was about confrontation. You can confront people in proxy conflicts without directly killing their leadership.
Why would you not kill a leader if they're a terrorist and they're killing American soldiers and they're planning ongoing attempts to kill Americans? Why
because
not?
You wouldn't want to escalate the situation in certain countries where we can't afford to escalate it.
And this didn't escalate
but
it.
Americans,
so it was a resounding success.
So why are there have been a huge uptick in missile attacks on American soldiers being? By the way, the idea like American soldiers getting killed is just a common occurrence. Not anymore. American soldiers, it's not like an average everything thing like, oh, today 50 Americans died. It's like once a month you might hear like, oh shit, an American died in Afghanistan. But this was like 2 Americans died and a British soldier, and Americans getting injured by like direct attacks from the Iranian military. That is not commonplace. Not to mention the increasement in frequency of activity from Iranian-backed proxies. I can't see how you're not saying
that's not from us taking out Soleimani though.
It's
again,
directly the heads of these groups are saying no, but that's not true because the heads of these groups are literally saying we are doing this for Soleimani. That's what they're literally saying.
Yeah. So, but guess what? You don't trust terrorists. You actually look at the realistic situation and analyze the situation using common sense.
Well,
they're doing it because they need the rally around the flag effect. They need this because the Iranian people are on the verge of overthrowing this government.
They're on the verge.
The only way that they can even maintain their own power is to literally create all of these security situations. So then there's less of an incentive.
How close are they to overthrowing that's interesting. This is the first I've heard this. How close are they to overthrowing the Iranian government? Have they gotten weapon stockpiles? Like, what are they doing?
Well, in 2009, they were very, very close, and then those protests have sort of continued on. But the Iranian regime just murders and kills thousands of protesters at a time, and then they escalate and do these little attacks and stuff to then try to maintain their own power. And so
Saddam,
the fact that they're economically they're on the verge of literal collapse, and we need to continue to put hard sanctions on Iran. We also need to escalate our arms sales to Israel and give Israel the 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs so that they can take out some of these deep mountain sites that Iran has, and continue to do what we do. And
by the way, you still think Trump is the anti-war president? By the way.
Yeah, he's clearly the most anti-war president we've had in my generation. Which
I can talk
another weird reason why I don't understand why Democrats aren't praising Trump left, right, and center, other than Trump derangement.
I think I have a few ideas why they might not be, but this situation of like, hey, they have to kill protesters. See, look how close they are. Their economy's in bad shape. Oh, see how close they are to collapse. Let's look at Iraq. I mean, that's a country that's right next to it and had very similar situations. I mean, we know Saddam Hussein gassed the Kurds. He fucking shot protesters left and right. We can look at that all the time. And you know what happened? Well, eventually got rid of Saddam Hussein. And that was after 2 extremely failed. Like, he failed the invasion of Iraq. of Iran. When he had to resort to using chemical weapons, he failed a horrible invasion into Kuwait, which failed miserably. And the thing that eventually removed him was an invasion. It wasn't an uprising. Now, I'm not advocating for invasion of Iran. A direct invasion, ground invasion of Iran would be a fucking disaster. But just because protesters are on the street and they're getting shot doesn't mean the government's going to be overthrown. And by the way, let's say the government does get overthrown. Why do you think that government being overthrown would necessarily be nice to Western interests?
Well, because the Iranian people, particularly the young people, from everything I've read, they want to be opened up to the rest of the world. They want to be a part of the global community. They're sick of being sanctioned. They're sick of being not able to travel. They're sick of having a shit economy. They're sick of the religious police. They're sick of all of this crap. And they want to have a say in their government, just like a lot of people. They're sick of authoritarian Islamic extremist nut jobs.
Yeah, but so
anything would be better.
Well,
especially for the US.
But that doesn't necessarily mean they'd be friendly to us. I mean,
they would be friendlier.
I mean, possibly, but I mean, at the end of the day, like the most likely scenario that would come from Iranian protesters on the street isn't the collapse of the government. It would be the Iranian government eventually conceding to some political points to like the protesters, like, okay, we'll invest more in social spending, or okay, we might even reduce sending some amount of arms to Hezbollah and convert that into spending on school building. I don't see how it's gonna like lead to the collapse of the government. I mean, and necessarily thinking young people in Iran, while they are more
I didn't say that it would lead to the collapse of the Iranian regime. I said they're getting closer, which is what is driving all of the Iranian government's escalatory attacks and all of this stuff. You're trying to tell me that, wow, Iran has been supporting terrorism for 40 years, and Iran is the world's #1 supporter of terrorism, and Iran has been killing American troops for decades, and Iran has been doing all this stuff, but all of this recent bad stuff, that's all because Trump killed a terrorist. It's like, dude, that's preposterous.
No, it's not that just one missile attack or any one missile attack. That's tit for tat when it comes to Iraq and the different proxy conflicts we're confronting them on. But the extreme amount that came right after the Soleimani killing is kind of, and the thing you dismissed earlier, that right after the Soleimani killing is when all these attacks spike up in Iraq, is when all this continues to escalate in Iraq, when Americans get injured, Americans getting killed, our allies getting killed, people in the Middle East, in Iraq getting killed at a higher rate, not just them getting killed, but getting killed at a higher rate, happens right after the Soleimani killing, and then the leaders of these groups say, it's because of Soleimani, and you say, well, we can't trust them, they're terrorists. But all the evidence, and you said we need to look at it factually, all the evidence points, like all these escalations, all the rates of these going up, points to it being because of the Soleimani killing. And again, I would love to hear the strategic gain that we made.
Right. So I'm to understand, if the United States just didn't kill these terrorists, then the radical Islamic extremists, they would be so nice to us.
That's not what I'm saying.
It's like, dude,
that's not what I'm saying. I'm not.
Oh God, who's the classic appeaser from World War II?
You're talking
Chamberlain? No,
you mean Neville Chamberlain?
Yeah, you're Neville Chamberlain.
I'll help your dunk on me. Yes. But
you're literally. I mean, this is the same thing this goes back decades. I mean, we've heard this argument since 9/11. I mean, Hassan goes out there and likes to say, "Oh, America got what it was coming on 9/11, and the only reason they attacked us on 9/11, the only reason they attacked us on 9/11 is because the United States had soldiers in the Middle East, and the United States supports Israel. And if the United States just didn't do all this stuff, and if
you're attacking someone who's not here, I'm not Hassan.
I'm making the point that you're making the exact same argument that we've heard.
You want to know the difference between me and Hassan? You want to know the difference between me and Hassan?
You're siding with the terrorist, basically.
I called him a fucking monster. I called him a horrible thing. I said my literal thing is I don't want Iran to be strategically more powerful in the Middle East, and you're fine with that happening to win dunking points on Twitch.
No, let me tell you something. The reason that the Islamic terrorists hate us, it's because they have a religious zeal that calls for the destruction of Israel and the destruction of the West, and it's got nothing to do with the United States policy. It's got to do with their own radical extremist
that's just
views
historical.
of the world.
That's a historical. I mean, we could go all the way back to 1953, the overthrow of the Shah. We could do like our shooting down of their planes,
right? Which was a great call by the U.S. at the height of the Cold War. Huge success, obviously, since we won the Cold War.
So you would attribute that to winning the Cold War? I mean, like, I would make the argument that while that might have been a short-term victory in the Cold War, it obviously has created a lot more problems than it solved. When we overthrow governments, democratically elected governments, that makes that...
again, we didn't create the problems in the Middle East. They're responsible for their own shit over there.
When it comes to Iran, we kind of did, though.
Quit trying to blame.
We kind of did create a lot of these problems
in the Middle East on the United States.
I'm not blaming. Number one,
they did it themselves.
Number one, I didn't blame.
Quit blaming it on U.S. policy.
Number one, I didn't.
The exact same thing that you're basically apologizing for terrorists.
I don't apologize for terrorists. Okay, but when it comes to this, right, I don't blame all the problems in the Middle East on America. I can blame it on a lot of issues. It can be Wahhabism, the idea of exporting Islamic revolution and that being fundamental to the Iranian government's belief system, authoritarianism, the prominence of the Ba'ath Party. There's a lot of things that is wrong with the Middle East, right? But when it comes specifically to Iran, if anyone was to overthrow a democratically elected government, institute a monarchy, right, and you're against authoritarianism, institute a monarchy with a secret police like the Savak, which we helped train, and it did horrible crimes against the Iranian people. I mean, even it's so bad that someone like the Iron Sheik, one of the best WWE wrestlers of all time, fled the country out of fear. I mean, when it comes to, I don't see how you could say that their hatred of America couldn't at all come from that.
Sure, that could play some role in it, but you know what? That's not the driving force behind it.
That's not the driving force behind their hatred of America. Then what specifically? No. Well, I would say that's one of the major driving forces, right? Another, of course, would be our support for the Israeli state, right? They don't like Israel.
Yeah, because they're racist and they're bigoted. They're religious bigots and they're racist against Israelis and Jews. So yeah,
that's not the only reason. That's kind of simplifying it.
You know what? We that doesn't mean that we should just stop supporting Israel because oh my gosh, we can appease the terrorists. The opposite.
I never said that.
We need to be increasing our support to Israel and giving them even more powerful bombs and stuff.
Well, I believe in Israel's right to exist. I am someone who's pro-Israel. I'm also pro-Palestine, but I'm pro-Israel. I believe in their right to exist. But why'd you laugh at that? Is that an insane proposal?
Well, I don't know. Like, just saying I'm pro-Israel and I'm pro-Palestine. It's like, okay.
I'm pro-human, man. Fucking love and peace, my dog. Anyway, when it comes
you do realize that the Palestinians don't believe Israel should have the right to exist, and they think all Jews should die.
Okay. Yo, I never knew that all the Palestinians thought that, and you could read all their minds like that. That's an amazing superpower.
Did they not elect Hamas?
Would you say that the Russian people hate like this or that group or whatever the government said they hate or whatever the government said they did? Like, was that how it works? Like,
I don't know. I don't know what that has to do with Hamas winning elections.
So when I say something about a certain group, I don't like to generalize about an ethnicity, race, culture, religion, anything. Right? And the thing is, depending on elections, depending on the political atmosphere, that can shift quite quickly. I mean, here's another thing. For instance, 50% of Palestinians support now, today, the Clinton Accords, which would have been a pretty comprehensive, one of the more comprehensive deals to solve the Palestine-Israel problem. Right? So does that mean now I can say, what does that say? 50% down the middle. Does that mean they're for peace, or does that mean since the other 50% aren't, they're for horrible conflict? I think just saying that about the entirety of the Palestinian population is kind of bigoted.
Well, you're the one that said you're pro-Israel and pro-Palestine.
Yeah,
my point is that
I'm pro both.
Israel throughout history, including all the way back to the 1940s, Israel has been willing to do a two-state solution and allow Palestine to exist. The Palestinians, regardless of whether you're talking about every individual or or the governing authority or the PLA or Hamas or whatever it is, the Palestinians and a lot of Arab countries as well have rejected the two-state solution over and over and over again because they refuse to allow Israel the right to exist, despite the historical claim to that land that the Jewish people have.
This is a very
has. And so hold on, let me finish. And so Israel, throughout all of its history, has been more than willing to do a peaceful two-state solution. It's been rejected by the Palestinians because they're racist and bigoted. And you're sitting here saying you're pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian. I just think that's kind of ridiculous.
Well, you know what? I'm at the end of the day, right? The thing is, I didn't say I'm pro-Republican or pro-Democrat. I said I'm pro a population of people, right? So if I said I'm pro-Northerner and pro-Southerner, I like both peoples, they're cool, right? I believe they should all live in prosperity. That's not me saying, oh, you're pro-Southerner? Well, the Southerners fought for like going into like anything of that, right? Like that's not me like making any allegations of what I fucking politically support. I'm saying I support.
Okay, so it's meaningless. It's a meaningless statement then. Okay.
Well, no, you're fucking saying all the Palestinians believe this, all the Palestinians believe that. You're very general. I mean, ever since I've gotten in here, you've basically like brought up Hassan, you've brought up like Obama, you've brought up all these Democratic, what you alleged what my position was going to be about Israel Palestine, and when it comes to the embassy, you've just kind of like built this image of what you think a Democrat is in your head.
If I'm wrong, tell me.
Okay, well I told you I was wrong. For instance, I told you I was wrong when you like thinking that I thought it was going to lead to a war when it came to the embassy move. Of course it wasn't going to lead to a war, and I'd actually like to see you show somebody with any prominence that thought it was going to lead to a war. If you can show me one person, I'll give you $100.
Oh my God, that would be so easy, dude.
Well, do it. Show me somebody with any prominence that isn't somebody who's fucking saying that's the same people who say it's going to be a war and every fucking thing. Show me any Democrat. Any fucking mainstream Democrat that said this is going to lead to a war.
All right, easy.
I
suppose you also didn't think that Trump colluded with Russia.
Do it. Like, do it. Like, please.
You were the one person. You were the one Democrat that got it right.
Actually, to be completely honest,
Trump colluded with Russia, and you were the one that didn't believe it.
Actually, to be completely honest, I don't follow impeachment. I don't really give a fuck.
Well, that wasn't even impeachment. That was the Mueller investigation.
Well, I don't follow any of it. I'm
speaking of impeachment, the Ukrainian support by the Trump administration against Russian aggression is another wonderful example of a huge success by Trump foreign policy.
Let's get back to Soleimani. If you know what, you want to talk about Trump? Okay, I've heard you kind of like stay silent anytime this comes up. What do you think of Trump's decision to pull out of northeastern Syria?
I have no problem with bringing American troops home and then just bombing terrorists if they start doing terrorist activities.
Okay, you know what?
Just like I'm in favor of trying to get our troops out of Afghanistan too. This is so funny. I love it. Democrats are now against bringing our troops home from the Middle East. It's like,
oh yeah, that's what I said, guys. I want internal occupation.
Think about how much Trump derangement syndrome you'd have to be to criticize an American president for trying to withdraw from occupying the Middle East. Like, you guys Democrats have been saying we want to bring our troops home, stop occupying the Middle East, and then Trump does it. And your hatred for Trump is so overwhelming that you're willing to give up on your policy of withdrawing from the Middle East just to try to get Trump. It's mind-boggling.
No. Number one, I when it comes to each and every country, you know what? I'm gonna put on an olive branch. Look, I'm a gun-toting conservative. Here's my AR-15. So you can see I'm a person who's like, I'm all about those conservative values, right? I'm a blue dog Democrat. But when it comes to this specifically, right? When it comes to like Syria, you know what? If it was a slow withdrawal, right, to not cause chaos, because fast withdrawals can cause chaos, like it did. The initial withdrawal had like there was like very close calls where like American soldiers were fired upon by Turkish-backed militias, terrorist militias, over 150 war crimes being committed. I was for staying within northeastern Syria to keep the peace, right? I'm an anti-war type person, right? I'm the anti-war Democrat, right? So when it comes specifically
so you should support Trump.
Well, no, let me go. I can go. We can get to Yemen in a little bit. We can talk about that. But when it comes specifically to northeastern Syria, what happened was we withdrew troops. Turkey and its Turkish-backed Islamist terrorist militias moved in, executed politicians, did horrible war crimes, this was a really weird case. They killed people. They would take those people's bodies and they would sell them back for families if they wanted to bury them. That was a really interesting case of our wonderful NATO ally being a wonderful humanitarian with his backed militias. And all that occurs, and we pull out of northeastern Syria, right? Now that happens, the Republican establishment, the Democratic establishment, just about everybody condemns him except for Rand Paul, right? And there's like multiple meetings with Trump, like, hey, Trump, what the fuck are you doing? Why did you do this? It's like, oh. At the end of the day, he pulls back to Iraq, right? So those troops don't go home, they go to Iraq. Then they're redeployed back into northeastern Syria, which means that none of those troops went home. We didn't fucking bomb any terrorists. If anything, it helped terrorists. Trump, during that move, was one of the biggest gifts to ISIS in the world. And you want to know why? I'm really curious.
Trump is the one that took out ISIS.
I said that was one of the best, that was the best late gifts to ISIS ever. And the reason why was the SDF actually holds a lot of ISIS prisoners because, governments don't want to take their foreign fighters because it's kind of hard to say to a population like, hey, one of our people went to Syria to fight for ISIS. If you want to bring them back, everybody's like, no, hey, let me finish. And when somebody sends those foreign fighters there and they have foreign fighters, none of them are going to go home because nobody's going to take ISIS fighters into the country, right? It's electorally suicide, even though they should to try them, right? So they're holding all these foreign fighters, the most extreme ISIS fighters possible. And we pull out, allowing Turkey to move in, meaning the SDF has to send basically more guards and more soldiers to the front line, leaving less people to guard. Bombs are literally being dropped on ISIS prison camps, and thousands escape, leading to a resurgence in ISIS activity in the area and a reduction in SDF anti-ISIS terror operations by like 75%. It was a huge gift to ISIS.
So the American military should be the world police, and we should go policing everybody and making sure all of these.
I'm not saying that.
You really need to quit blaming anything bad that happens on either America or Trump.
But that's directly something Trump did. That's what Trump did, and that was the result of Trump.
Blame America. It's the blame.
I'm not blaming Trump. I'm actually blaming Trump.
It's not Trump's fault that there's terrorists in the Middle East.
No, but it's his fault that he pulled out and that happened. It is his fault.
So you're literally saying the U.S. military should be the world police.
I'm not saying we should be the world police, but if we
you just said we shouldn't pull out because we need to stay there to make sure that their prisoners don't escape. That sounds like pretty much world police.
Well, I didn't know we have a badge kicking into every country. Russia knocked down your door. We're coming in to save the gays. We're not doing that. When it comes to this specific area, it was a very simple commitment between 50 to 150 troops to stop one of our allies. Maybe you're leaving NATO because it's world police to have troops in Europe, right? I don't know. Maybe you're a retrenchment. Maybe you're an isolationist. I don't know. A lot of Trump supporters are isolationists. I can make generalizations as you as well, man.
No, NATO is another example of a huge foreign policy success by Trump is NATO, because Trump has been able to get the NATO countries to massively increase defense spending in compliance with the NATO agreement. So NATO is much stronger, and Trump having rebuilt the U.S. military and having the NATO countries increase their defense spending and having other allies including South Korea help pick up the tab. I mean, Trump's foreign policy has been an unmitigated success. I
would say it's been an unmitigated failure.
Being opposed, your main criticism of Trump's foreign policy when he's got 100 wonderful successes, and your main criticism is, oh no, Trump killed a terrorist. And
my main I was just giving you.
They're gonna get mad at us because we killed a terrorist.
No, they're gonna kill more Americans because they killed a terrorist, or it's gonna increase their funding. It's increase their funding, increase their.
Guess what? They're gonna kill us.
By the way, I never.
Try to kill us either way.
But they're okay. Whatever. Look, when it comes to this, specifically, when it comes to northeastern Syria, that was something Trump did. He made the decision to pull out of northeastern Syria when we had a military commitment there, and we knew pulling out would cause that fallout. And if maybe Trump's just a coward, but why did he go back on it then and deploy troops back into northeastern Syria?
Do you have any consistency in your foreign policy other than whatever Trump does is bad?
No, you know what? Okay, I can give you some things Trump did that are good. Want to hear me compliment Trump? I will actually applaud him for something he did. I am a huge supporter of Taiwan, right? I support Taiwan against the CCP and their encroachment, right? I'm on the South China Sea. I'm pretty aggressive on that. We're not gonna let the Scarborough Shoal fall to China. That's not their territory. We need to protect the area for trade and a lot of other reasons, right? He has increased sending military arms to Taiwan. I support that. That's a good thing that he did. I support that, right? That's the thing. There you go. There's my olive branch to you. That's the thing that he did that was good. I think the majority of everything else was absolutely terrible and comes from zero basis of knowledge of foreign policy, because Trump knows literally bat shit about foreign policy, definitely about the Middle East. He knows next to nothing about the Middle East. You know what? Here's a good example of time he knew literally next to nothing about the Middle East. I remember when he was talking about the KRG, the Kurds in Iraq, and he was complimenting them about stuff that they didn't do. And it was really confusing. I mean, people didn't really understand what he was saying. But what they eventually realized is that he was talking about the Kurds in Syria. He literally just heard the Kurds and just think the Kurds are just one big amorphous blob that have all the same foreign policy and there's no difference whatsoever. And it shows a lack of knowledge of the region, and it shows that I don't think he has the knowledge to really be the commander-in-chief.
Weird thing to say, considering Trump's been so successful on foreign policy, and Trump knew more about the world than any other previous president.
He knew more about the world than any other previous president. So are the Kurds an amorphous blob, and I'm just an idiot?
That sounds like an idiotic thing to say.
That does sound like an idiotic thing for him to say. No, it's an idiotic thing for him to think that the Kurds are an amorphous blob.
You're the one that's saying that.
No, okay. Let me say it again. You didn't hear me clearly. When he was talking about the KRG, when he was talking about the Kurds within Iraq, he started complimenting them for deals the Kurds in Syria made, which had nothing to do with the KRG. And they were really confused at what the fuck he was saying, because it had nothing to do with them. And what people immediately realized is that he didn't really know the difference between the Kurds in Iraq, which have a totally different political structure, totally different military force with the Peshmerga, from the Kurds within Syria when it comes to the SDF, YPJ, YPG.
Wow. Well, we can all agree, a Kurd is a Kurd. Kurds are Kurds.
That indeed they are.
Well, pretty weak argument against the killing of Soleimani. You realize that's an incredibly minority position. The vast majority of people realize that it's a good thing to take out terrorists who are killing Americans in the process of killing Americans.
I bet you right now, if you looked at the Wikipedia page for the Esmail Kwani, I bet you it'll probably be I can bet. Well, I'm not gonna bet you because I know it is. Literally, the recommendation, the advice that they use from that when talking about how his effectiveness is going to impact Soleimani is really saying, well, he might not have the same amount of experience in that leadership position. His experience in other military roles means that he probably isn't going to reduce the effectiveness whatsoever. Even on the Wikipedia page, the blank thing, and I'm not going to appeal to Wikipedia at the end of the day, but this is a widely recognized thing, that this person isn't, that the killing of Soleimani isn't going to reduce the Quds Force ability to do operations in the future.
When he travels to Baghdad to orchestrate a siege on the American embassy, let me know, and then I'll believe you. But until then, I think I'm right.
Well, I can just show you the Americans that he's helped orchestrate their death. There you go.
Can I ask you both kind of a little two-part question here? So,
sure.
Dylan, I know you don't agree with what Trump decided to do in regards to Soleimani. Lecture, I believe you do agree, but we all know hindsight is 20/20. You can look back and say that what he did you think is fine. But what I would ask Lecture is, would you have done something different than Trump from the jump? Not looking now and saying, well, it didn't blow back all that bad, or it did. And Dylan, what would you have done other than what Trump has done? What do you think would be a better way to handle that?
If I was Trump, I would have launched a severe and disproportionate retaliatory strike against Iran when they shot down the American military drone, and that would have probably had the effect that was necessary to kind of de-escalate the situation and put a stop to some of the basically traipsing around the Middle East, conducting terror operations that these Iranians were doing. And so I don't know if we would have got to the point where we needed to take out Soleimani. I still think we probably would have, and it still would have been a good move. But frankly, I think Trump should have been more aggressive with Iran. Back at the time when Iran shot down our military drone, I was criticizing Trump for not retaliating as John Bolton had recommended. But Trump has been incredibly restrained. Trump is the most anti-war president we've had. He's the only president in modern times that not get us into a war. He's done more to withdraw American troops from around the world. He's done incredible job on foreign policy. I've got a list of about 25 foreign policy successes I could list off. But I mean, frankly, me being more of a traditional realist on foreign policy, I do believe in an aggressive use of military force, and Trump being very restrained, very anti-war. He should be getting praise left and right from Democrats, but they've let their Trump derangement syndrome overtake their anti-war positions, and so they now care more about hating Trump than they do about anti-war, because if they didn't, they would be praising Trump for all of his anti-war positions.
Just curious. By the way, what realist theorists do you tend to agree with?
Oh, frick! It's been so long since I've read any of them. I don't know.
Okay. So my
But no, you need to answer the question, because I think it's a great question, because
well, I'm about to.
You
I'm
can
about
criticize
to.
all
I'm
you
about
want,
to.
but you haven't said a
can I
damn
please?
thing
Can I
that
please?
you would do that was
I'm
different.
I'm trying to right now. When it
Also,
came.
stop interrupting so much, dude.
Nice meme. But when it comes specifically to this, right? I think that what we should have done was, when it came to that, we could have used what happened at the embassy, which to us was we could have dragged that out to be a success, and Trump could have used that to be like a fucking electoral fucking heyday. I mean, the idea, Trump could have basically framed it as a failed I'm forgetting it's. Well, I'll just say, I'll know immediately, you'll know what I'm talking about. The Hillary Clinton's failure in Libya with the embassy, you know what I'm talking about specifically? The name leaves me right now. If I frame it like that, you know what I'm talking about?
Wait, say that again.
The embassy, Benghazi. Sorry, there we go.
Yeah.
Benghazi. He could have framed it like, hey, there was a Benghazi moment in my presidency. There was a Benghazi moment Americans had, and we fought back, we pushed them out, and we didn't lose a single American life, and we did not repeat 1979. Iran, you will not repeat 1979 in Iraq or in any American embassies. And that could have been a strong moment of defiance, strength, and it would have showed the world a reserved position, but a reserved position of strength. And it would have made Iran look tremendously weak. I think that would have been a great thing to do. But instead, we didn't really do a lot of PR about it. We didn't beat our fists. We didn't do a lot of positioning, and we went straight into this response. I think the beating of the chest would have been a lot better. Definitely long term.
Crazy.
Well, okay then.
You're like you think you can talk sense and
I didn't
talk sense with Islamic terrorists. Craziness.
I didn't. Well, yeah, man, that's amazing. Like, you repeated me word for word right there, didn't you?
Pretty much.
Amazing.
By
I
the
literally,
way, according to
I literally said like, hey, you're not gonna repeat 1979, motherfuckers, and you're like, wow, sounds like you love terrorism. This is fucking insane.
Well, dude, you're basically saying let the Iranians kill hundreds of Americans, and then in response just talk tough on them. It's like, dude,
no,
they're
nobody
killing Americans. You have to kill them.
Hundreds of Americans died in the embassies. I didn't. Whoa, this is news to me, man.
Dude, the embassy was part of an ongoing effort by the Iranians that had been going on for decades, and they had killed hundreds of Americans.
I don't know if you're talking about specifically the 600, but all those American deaths have been retaliated to. Nobody died in the embassy strike. Nobody died in the embassy siege, and we could have used that as fucking PR mastery. Dude, do you not see the opportunity? Do you not see the opportunity? Like, you do know about the embassy in Iran and, like, you know, the seizing of the students seizing, like, the emissary. Like, this is like very basic history when it comes to 1979, and us basically turning to that and showing, like, this. I'm just imagining the posters putting up on the wall right now, 1979. Then, and it's like a bunch of fucking Americans like being held hostage at gunpoint, and then now, and it's their fucking like a burnt out embassy held strong, nobody taken, them running with their tail between their legs. Dude, the mastery and doing that during the point where the Iranian backed militias are killing protesters and showing them, look, Look at these people. They're weak. They can only kill unarmed oh my god. That's mastery. But I wouldn't see that from Trump because he doesn't have the intelligence to do that.
Huh. Well, we've been debating for an hour. You got anything else?
You know what? I think we've hashed it out enough, you know. Yeah, I think that's good. I've got a few people I'm gonna talk to in chat. I love talking to you, man. Genuinely.
Yeah, no, I get fired up, but don't take anything personally.
Don't worry, man. You're still invited to my house for dinner or whatever. You know what? I'll name my first child after you. Whatever. It's all good, man. Love you.
All right. Thanks, Killer Steven. Thanks for moderating.
Yeah, do what I can. You guys are pretty much 0 or 10, so.
Right.
So was that 0 or 10?
Yeah, well, y'all were 0 and y'all were 10. I don't know. Y'all didn't do too bad though. You didn't get too crazy.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Steven, for sitting in. You were a little too talkative though. I think you should be more quiet next time.
Yeah, well, I'd have to keep interrupting you guys, and nobody wants that. Then they'd start saying, "What's up with this moderator? Why does he keep talking so damn much?"
No problem, man.